Hello there, this is Alex with Worship Leader Magazine, and I am here with Audrey Assad.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it.
Good to be here.
We're here in Nashville at the 2018 National Worship Leaders Conference, and we're going to have a good time tonight. We have a songwriters in the round set up for all the registrants to the conference, and so I've just got three questions for you.
Okay.
And then we'll call it a day.
Great.
In that sense. So the theme of this year's conference is "This is my story, this is my song." This is my story, this is our song.
Okay.
So does that impact you in any way? Is that?
I like that. Well, with worship music, I think a common complaint you hear from people who might be more of a certain theological tradition, or they sort of talk about, like, it's not about I, me, and whatever.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's about I and me and us, right?
And us.
So community doesn't exist without individuals. If we're going to get together and corporately speak to God about life, there's a place for that reminder of individuality and God's witness to each of our lives. He's witnessing the intimate details of each of our hearts and lives, and our pain and our trauma and our doubts and our worries and all those things, So there's something beautiful to me about them existing in one sentence, because we exist as individuals and as community, and I think our music should reflect that. Absolutely.
That's right. Excellent. Well, so speaking of community and me and us and story, I want you to pick out any song that you've ever written.
Okay.
And tell me the story behind that song. Why was that song written?
Sure. Well, one of the songs I'm singing tonight at the event is called "Drawn to You." It's on my newest record, Evergreen. It's the last track. I wrote it with Matt Marr. We wrote the chorus together.
Okay.
And it was one of the few songs I've ever been part of where the chorus happened first.
Yeah.
That's usually something you build to. But the whole kind of thrust of the song just sort of happened initially. And what was happening there is that I was at the tail end, or right in the middle, I guess, of going through what I then would have called a spiritual crisis, I think. Mm-hmm. Now I look back and I see what was happening, and all the crisis part of it was that I was worried about what other people might think about my doubts and how deep they ran. Because that's really all that caused the panic, right? My questions were actually totally reasonable and something to just live through and live with compassionately, but I was freaking out about, like, what would people think if they knew that I was questioning meaning itself? Yeah. I mean, because as a professional, whatever this is I do, like songwriter / devotional musician, I guess I would call myself, there's a certain expectation on you to maintain a theological standard at a certain level, and I understand it, but it can cause this psychological pressure. So anyway, I was going through, like, a deconstruction of everything I'd grown up with. I was going to trauma therapist for PTSD symptoms at the time, and I had to cancel a bunch of shows because I couldn't walk into a church without panicking. I mean, there was a lot going on. And so as I was writing songs, just here and there when I could, a thought that occurred to me was, I don't know what I believe anymore. If you ask me today, this is a few years back, if you ask me today, what do you believe? The list is super short, because I don't know what I believe anymore. It's all up for question. I'm burning down everything and seeing what remains. And I thought, the one thing I can say is that after all of this and all of the trauma I'm dealing with from my childhood and all of the things I've lost in life, I am drawn to God. That is just unmistakably true. Even when I don't want that to be the case, it's just there. I've tried to be an atheist. I've tried hard because I feel like it would relieve my feelings, and it just isn't me. Yeah. I feel compelled towards God. And so we wrote this song called "Drawn to You" that the chorus just says, after everything I've had, after everything I've lost, I know this much is true. I'm still drawn to you. And I think anyone going through any kind of season of darkness, whatever it might be, hopefully will find a home in that.
Well, even C.S. Lewis went through a time period.
Oh, yes.
Where he had to
been encouraging to me,
deconstruct his faith, but then it all came back and he worked it all out as we know.
It's a maturing process to go through that, but we're scared of it, so I try to write songs about it to make it a little easier on people.
Well, let me finish with this with you. Romans 12:1 says that we are to present our bodies as a living sacrifice. And then it says later on in the verse, this is the verse, it says later on, that it is our reasonable act of worship.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you? What is our reasonable act of worship?
So I would say one of the, I think, core tenets of our faith that sets it apart from many other, maybe all other religions, is that it involves body and spirit knit together in Jesus, in God. You know, God took on flesh, so in order to do what he came to do, he took on a body, and it became like a baptism of our human experience in every sense of the word. Too often, I think a lot of us live in the mind to an extreme. We idolize it as if it's not part of our body, as if it's disconnected from our body in some way, when in reality, if we didn't have a body, we wouldn't have a mind, you know, because we wouldn't have a brain, and we wouldn't have breath, and we wouldn't have all those things. Like, God breathed his spirit into bodies. And I think that verse, I remember it really well because I learned it to a song when I was young. You know, therefore I urge you, brothers. Anyways, it unites those things again, saying, like, you present your bodies as a living sacrifice, and then by the renewal of your mind, our spiritual act of worship is to show up as whole people, to bring our whole selves, body, mind, and spirit, and just offer it and be present. And I think that verse actually, without saying so, I think it sort of affirms that our faith is incarnational. It's not just in your brain.
Great. Wonderful. Well, Audrey, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks
I'm
for
so
having
glad
me.
you're here with us.
Me too.
And we will see you later on tonight at
Great.
Songwriters in the Round. Thank you.
Bye.